Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome once again to another wonderful Wednesday. A captive audience is Don Anderson and Leslie Schneider. What say you,
Hello.
Leslie?
Hello. It's not afternoon, Dawn. It is well into the evening, unless we're, I don't know, somewhere else in Hawaii. But that's the way it feels sometimes, right? It's like there's so many more things that I have to do before I can hit the pillow, and it feels like only half the day's over.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Well, the good news about being on the West Coast is most of the insanity happens on the East Coast. So at least the day is done by the time we get to it, right? So there is that.
That's true. That's true. And there's always something going on.
Always. Yeah. What a year! What a wild year! So I'll let you kick this one off, and
All right.
what say you?
Well, there are a lot of things going on. Everybody is talking about this case in the UK about the young white university student who was stabbed by a Sikh man. This actually happened
Hmm.
December 2025, but it's been in the courts this whole time, and it's just chugging along super, super slowly. But like basically, if nobody's heard, this gentleman, Henry Nowak, 18-year-old British university student, he was out with a bunch of his buddies, and I think he was like on his way home, and he was walking down a street, and he comes across a Sikh man, 23-year-old Sikh guy. I don't know if he was a citizen, if he's illegal. I haven't found that out.
Hmm.
I'm sure somebody can write in the chat what they know. But he's walking down the street, and um, apparently, according to this Sikh gentleman, the Henry started shouting racial slurs at him, and and then knocked his it's not a turban. What is it called? Oh yeah, it is a turban. Knocked the turban off of his head, and and so this guy called the police,
Hmm.
and so the police get there, and they find Nowak um, lying on the ground, and this guy, this Sikh guy, all charged up, and upset and complaining about being attacked. Well, come to find out that so he's complaining about being attacked. Nowak's on the ground. Nowak's saying to them, "I've been stabbed. I can't breathe." They say they don't believe him.
Hmm.
I'm stabbed. I can't breathe. They still don't believe him. He bleeds out and dies right there on the scene. And they go up to find out, investigate, actually take it seriously, and they find out that he's bleeding profusely. His lung has been punctured, and that's why he couldn't breathe. So he dies at the scene. Well, then since then they've recovered. This guy was saying, had this whole story about what happened, and they recovered a phone in this guy's pocket that actually belonged to the victim, Henry Novak,
Okay.
and it completely contradicts this guy's story. So now Henry's dead. Vikram Digwa is the guy, 23 years old. He's on trial, and his mother is also charged with assisting the defendant, the offender, the murderer, by actually taking the weapon away from the scene and hiding it back at their family home. So he had two knives on him, or he was carrying two knives. One of them was like a short knife that is for ceremonial purposes. The other one was a 21-inch blade. That's the one that he used. But in England, like, you can't carry anything, right? Like, you can't
Yeah.
you certainly can't carry a gun, but you can't really carry anything except this
Uh-huh.
guy, except if you have it, you can carry a ceremonial knife.
Right.
And
Hmm.
apparently this guy took it further and is carrying a 21-inch bladed knife. But I mean, so now of course everybody's freaking out, because like we've seen this scene years ago and we recognize that it was wrong, right?
Hmm.
White people were, you know, have attacked and killed and lied,
Hmm.
brown people, right?
Hmm.
All shades of brown. And we recognize that's terrible. We're not going to allow that to happen. Yet here we are again in this reverse discrimination. I mean, the police didn't even go up and look. This guy's laying on the ground saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And they don't even go up and look. In fact, one of the policemen, it's on the body cam, he doubts him. He was like, I don't believe you. I think you can breathe.
And this was in, and this is in Great Britain.
Yeah. Yeah. In England.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whatever problems we have here, they're magnified by about 40 over there. They've got some real problems there because their political class is basically,
captured.
Anti what the regular citizens want.
Yeah, they're captured.
They're arresting people for flying the Union Jack. I mean, so it's I don't maybe it will finally turn there. I don't know. I just don't know.
Well, I think that there's some signs of it turning, right? I mean, we see some political winds that are moving in the opposite direction. Keir Starmer's party was completely defeated, decimated. So there's going to be some new people making rules and potentially unwinding, some of the bad rules that are there. And we see things going on in Ireland, so that's good. I don't know. I think it can't get worse. I mean, I guess it always can get worse. We know ultimately it's going to get worse. We know that.
Those are dangerous words. It can't go. Oh, it can get worse.
I know, as soon as you think, but
yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So I mean, that's a big story that everybody's talking about. There was also a win in New York for a Second Amendment win in New York, which again, crazy. I don't know if you heard anything about that.
No, I hadn't.
Okay, well, so the just like California, New York was dragging its feet on concealed carry permits. All right, and so they were called out, and Kathy Hochul, the Supreme Court, basically told them that they needed to remove this restrictive system that they had for issuing concealed carry permits. And right after that happened, Governor Kathy Hochul convened a special session of the state legislature, and they passed a series of new restrictions, with one of them that was come to known as the vampire rule. And the rule is, okay, we're going to give out these concealed carry permits, but now any property owner has to post a sign indicating that they will allow people with concealed carry permits to carry guns on their private property. And if they do not post these signs, then it defaults to a ban in these locations on concealed carry. So you have to make an effort. Yeah, you have to make an effort to show that you're going to support an existing law, and if you don't publicly support and post a sign in support of the law, then the opposite is true. It makes no sense. So a bunch of gun rights groups sued again, and they lost. So, but the reason why they call it the vampire law is because of the old saying where like a vampire has to be invited in. So that's so that's the whole idea, is that you have to be explicitly invited to conceal carry on someone's property in order to be able to do it by law.
What is it about that party and these weird machinations they do with laws? I mean, it makes me think about during the Reconstruction era, and this is the old Jim Crow thing, where to get around just, enforcing the federal law, well, everybody now has to have the grandfather law. So if your grandfather didn't vote, you can't vote. Well, obviously, if you were an ex-slave, your grandfather didn't vote. Or the poll law, right? Well, if you didn't vote in the last election, then you can't vote in this one. Well, obviously, you were a slave then. And it's like, and each one of these, you keep having to go to the Supreme Court and get them reversed. And this is like this party's been doing this stuff for over 150 years, I guess I would say. Rather than go the constitutional route, if you want to like overturn the Second Amendment, there's a process for that. How about we go through the process? Well, of course they don't, because they know they would lose. So this is another way of eliminating the citizens' rights, and going around the process.
I know.
It's what we have, but thank goodness we have a Second Amendment. I'm convinced that that all of Europe's in the situation they're in is because they don't have a Second Amendment.
Oh yeah.
Arms.
Oh, yeah.
So you have a government that's willing to do outrageous stuff. I mean, the stories that come out of Great Britain with I shouldn't call them illegal immigrants. They're legal because the government let them in, and they're coming in and literally like gang raping these girls for like the last 20 years. And can you imagine being the mother or father of a kid and that happens and you have zero recourse? I mean, the courts won't listen to you. They won't take you seriously. The police won't get involved or engaged in it. You've got zero recourse. Well, that's the kinds of things that governments do when they know their citizens. They know that if the citizens report they're not citizens, you are a subject.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you say imagine yourself as a mother, of a victim, I think most parents are like mama bear, papa bears, right? I mean, we will absolutely get out there and maul anybody or anything that threatens our child. The problem is that you have to choose your life or your child's current situation, meaning because of these government restrictions, because of the prosecutions that are going on, you're now giving, I mean, at least your daughter is alive. If you go and take action, right, against vigilante justice against these attackers, you're done. And you're going to prison. You will never see your daughter again. How is that helping her? Right? I mean, that's the Sophie's choice that you're left with, is that I could do the right thing, but now I will be completely separated from my child and my family. And not only is my child victimized once, but now she's victimized again by these same people, basically, and the system. But did you hear that there was a case very, very recently that Keir Starmer has responded to, and I think it's really only because his party took a major beating. But there were 3 young men who raped a girl and received 0 jail time.
Yeah.
And he finally spoke out. Was it this week? Maybe over the weekend? He finally spoke out and said, "You know what? We're gonna look into this. We're gonna take we're gonna take action. This doesn't seem right."
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've been letting them alone.
And the thing is, they don't care. I think one of the things you have to recognize is the elites that run these countries, their objective is one world government. And the way that you destroy a country is you destroy the culture by letting everyone in it. So it's not in their interest to look out for the citizens of their country.
Yeah.
And that's why they're doing this, is they want the chaos. And so you have to remove them. They are the problem. They'll say whatever they need to say to get elected. I mean, I think by now we know they only respond, like you said, they only respond to this, not because it was the right thing to do, but it was because there was the threat of being kicked out of office. And that's not the kind of person you want in office. You want somebody who's going to do the right thing because it's the right thing, not somebody who's going to do the right thing because they're not going to kick out of office. But that's what you have in Britain. I mean, these are the reasons why they opted out of the EU, but their leadership class wants in the EU. So they're behaving like they're in the EU, even though their population voted against this, and they keep bringing it up for vote, keep losing.
I know. But is it Nigel Farage? Is that his last name? He's the guy who kind of led the Brexit movement, and now he's back. He's back on top. So I don't know. We'll see how things go. Yeah,
I mean, hey, look, anything's possible. I mean, they could still save themselves, but you look at the the hole in general that Europe's dug itself, what the radical left, what the elites have dug for them. So Britain was once, their coal industry was huge once upon a time. Their automotive industry, engines, aircraft engines, they were huge in those places. But due to their the green, which is basically a commie movement to destroy the economy, the offshore drilling for oil, North Sea, all of that, they got rid of like pretty much all of that. And now working class, kind of like what happened in this country, we hollowed out the center of our country in terms of people went out and building and doing stuff. Well, they did the same thing there. And then they turned around and started buying their gas from Russia, of all places, right? So rather than buy it from your NATO partner, the United States, you go buy the stuff from Russia. Now, what could possibly go wrong with that?
Yeah.
Right? So now, I hate to hazard a guess as to what their gas price. They make ours look like a joke though over there, because Russia. Oh, you don't. You're going to give munitions to Ukraine. Well, fine. We'll just cut off the oil. Like, who couldn't see that coming?
So when did
It's
yeah?
just,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just finished. I was just saying it's just insane. It's insane from a national self-interest perspective, but it's not insane if your objective is to form one world government, destroy your country.
Yeah. When did England stop buying oil from Russia?
No, they didn't stop buying it. Russia stopped selling it to them
Well,
because
yeah.
yeah, right. Because when they attacked Ukraine and they started imposing all them tariffs on them, it's probably been 3 or 4 years ago, I guess now.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yep, and the Russians, well, fine, we're not going to sell you oil if you're going to like impose tariffs on us. So now they got themselves in a heck of a conundrum.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And by the way, you've wound your defense down to nothing, so you can't even defend yourself. They couldn't even send a ship. We asked them to send a ship to help out in Iran, just here recently. They couldn't send one because I think the one or two that they had were like in dry dock for being fixed or something. We're talking Great Britain, the empire on whom the sun never set, not 100 years ago. Trafalgar and Lord Nelson, and they can't send a boat. What in the world is going on here, right? I mean, it's a country that can't defend itself.
Right. Right. Well, maybe that's why they've been laying down, with all these immigrants. I don't know. They've just been, I have another word for it that I won't use on the air, but they've been turned into an entire nation of beta males,
Well, that's pretty much what's happened. Plus, part of that is if you're going to give all these goodies and you're young, have no place to work, and they have no ability to buy, so they stop having kids. So now your birth rate is like, replacement rate's like what, 2.1, and they're down at like 1.1. So now the idea is we'll bring in immigrants, they'll fix the problem and work for us. This sound familiar, by the way? They'll pick our lettuce and mow our lawns and do all this stuff, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is there's a cost associated with doing that. And the cost is they're, especially with the type of immigrants they're getting over there, they're not a cultural fit. And at some point, you're going to reach a critical mass where they're going to like burn your country to the pavement. And one of the things you'll notice, and I remember this 20 years ago, people used to make the argument that the immigrants into this country were a net financial gain. No one ever makes that argument, by the way. Nobody's out there making the argument that they're not a drain on the economy. I mean, they're just not.
I heard a Democrat make that very recently. I think it was last week. I was reading that somebody was making in California politics. I think it was Xavier Becerra was making that claim.
That's absolute laughter now. I almost never hear it because it's such a laugher. You just look at like the cost of the medical system, the cost of the school system, the cost of crime and law enforcement.
Well, yeah, it's like
prison system.
Yeah, don't believe your eyes, just believe what I tell you. I mean, how long are you hearing that? Like the sky is blue. It's not green. I don't understand what you're saying. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. It's a net drain. There's no way that it's worth it.
Yeah. No way.
And that's why you got to admire someone like Japan's prime minister. She's like, no, we're not letting in anybody. And they have the worst, replacement rate in terms of having babies One of the worst anyway. They're down there at like 1 or something, right? They're going to have to figure out a different way. But one thing they know for sure is we're not going to bring people into our country who hate our country and want to change it. I mean, they're literally kicking them out.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, we'll see. We'll see how things roll forward with us. Well, I don't want to dominate. Give me something, Don.
Yeah. Well, let me look at my little list here. I was having some problems. I was telling Leslie earlier, I was having some problems with my internet. And so I got all, let me see if I can, this is what I get for assuming. I usually get here a half hour early just to make sure that something doesn't go sideways. I didn't do that today. And of course, everything went sideways. So here's just a couple of things.
Well,
some of it's a little bit of a repeat, but I think stuff, we have a deep discussion, a little more of a discussion. Cornyn, so Texas Rhino Cornyn lost 64-36, by the way, in terms of percentage of vote to Ken Paxton in Texas, in spite of outspending him 10-1. I mean, that is absolutely amazing. I mean, someone who's been a sitting senator for 20 years, those guys never, ever lose. And one of the biggest problems that on the Republican side of the House is you've heard people talk about the uniparty. And people who said that, they were largely accurate, because when it came crunch time, we would have these people who claimed to be Republicans. And when it came to, most of the time, they'd vote for the party. But when it came to the real important stuff, they would always switch over and vote with the Democrats and just kill us, right? And it's just so great to finally see that these guys are being primaried. I mean, this is, when you start primarying people who've been sitting senators for 20 years, that is awesome. And it was him and the one in Kentucky, same sort of thing. It's Republicans are finally waking up and behaving like Democrats have behaved for the last 30 years. This is the only way that you win, and we've got to get people out. And one last thing I'll say, then I'll be quiet. I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that Trump is Republican, and I disagree with that. I think what happened was this country doesn't do third parties. We tried the Tea Party about 10 or 15 years ago, and that didn't work out right. So or Ross Perot, and he did the third party, but we're a two-party country. So you either got to take over one of the two parties, right? That's the way that you do it. And this uniparty thing was largely correct. Both parties are pretty much going to the same place. The Democrats just driving us off the cliff a little faster than the Republican Party. Republicans, they get elected, and they tell the people they tell conservatives what they want to hear, and then as soon as they get elected, they forget about it. I mean, that's how it's gone. So we finally have a guy where we're starting to gradually get rid of people who truly do believe in conservative positions. And that's what I love about this. So the responsive to the people finally. So this is huge. So there's my 50 cents on that. What say you to that, Leslie?
No, I agree with you. I noticed that too, that the polls are still coming back. Even Fox polls are still coming back saying that Trump's approval rating is actually in negative numbers. But at the same time, you've got Trump endorsed candidates winning. So, I don't obviously, I mean, the polls are wrong, or they don't like what Trump's doing, but they still trust him enough to recommend somebody else. I don't, it doesn't make sense. If the polls are right, then you'd think people would be swinging away from anything that Trump is endorsing, because they would be like, well, those people are going to, and just all of this, I don't know, the accusations that he's kind of taking his revenge on people, that absolutely may be true. I mean, I think that is in his character, but again, that's politics. I don't for a second think that didn't happen previously. We just didn't see it.
Yeah. Why is that a bad thing, by the way? I mean, that's how this thing works. People make these accusations. They're funny. It's kind of similar to people saying that, oh, it's a conspiracy. Well, of course it's a conspiracy. Everything's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Your mother and father conspired to have you. People make the silliest arguments ever. The system designed to be an adversarial system. If you lose elections, there's consequences. And it was like Obama who said that. I mean, so don't lose then.
Yeah.
It's just hilarious to me to hear them make those kinds of arguments. And as far as the polls go, I don't see how any conservative could take a poll seriously. They ran around saying that Hillary had blown out Trump, and then she lost. They ran around blowing what's the last one from California, the crazy woman, Kamala Harris. Oh, it's a blowout. Oh, it's a blowout. They were saying that on election day to right up to the last hour or something that she was going to win. How can you possibly take them seriously? You know, there's probably certain pollsters that you can look at and those you might look at more seriously. Like I think Rasmussen might be one that's like one of the few that you might look at seriously. But even having said that, until you're within a month or two of the election, I think they're pretty useless. I mean, they're interesting for the talking heads to talk about, right? And we know that conservative people are notorious for not really answering polls honestly, because people will say, tell them what they think they want to hear. So you can always take 2, 3, 4 points off for that.
Yeah.
So I think you look around with your eyes, ears, what you see, what you feel, your friends around you. That's much more accurate than anything these people are saying.
Yeah. Well, especially if you're calling Republicans in blue states. I mean, I'm not going to say anything to anybody who calls me on. I mean, I don't even answer, the polls, right. but if I would, I'd be thinking, I don't know who these people are. I'm going to answer them halfway. I'm not going to tell the real truth.
Plus, people are notorious for not really. The vast majority of the population doesn't really tune into this stuff until you're like a month or two away, anyway. And the marketing and the advertising, none of that stuff's even started on the national stage. So with regard to Trump, I think people are the fact that the base is thrilled, which is what matters most, is demonstrated by things like this victory with this guy who's been around 20 years. I just said his name a moment ago. Cornyn and Massey out in Kentucky, and then the complete wipeout that happened in Indiana a few weeks ago. So clearly he's winning, and the large media just can't stand to say it. It's what was in Indiana, the state representatives, like 6 or 7 of them, like all went down in flames. Yeah. And then when you start looking at and they haven't even started talking about all the successes. For example, the April jobs report added another 115,000 jobs in April, 12,000 construction factory jobs. The S&P 500 have been hitting record highs. It's just everywhere you look, 11 trillion in new investments have been pouring in over the last year. About the only thing you can really point to as a negative is the gas price thing. And then if you look at people's behavior, that's not stopping them from spending. Every indicator in terms of people are whining and wailing about it, but they're still spending.
Yeah. And that's confusing to me because people are going into debt to buy groceries. They're going into debt to buy their electric bill. I mean, people are in debt. Mm-hmm. And, I guess I'm speaking from an extremely expensive area of the country and an expensive area of my state. But, people here, there is no evidence in my work life and in my finances that our country is bringing in cash and winning favor with, and growing industry. I mean, my grocery bill is still incredibly high. My electric bill is, highest in the nation. Like you said, gas prices, highest in the nation.
And who's to blame for that?
Well, I'd like to see some things like, I was kind of hoping that, around tax day, right before, the tax filing, we'd see some major reforms at the Fed level. I mean, I was kind of thinking that he was going to say, hey, now that we've got this tariff dashboard all dialed in and we've got this and this and this going on, everybody across the board, you get, a $10,000 deduction, right? Mm-hmm. And that'll siphon through and be credited in different ways, or everybody gets a $1,000, refund. I mean, like, give me something, do something that shows me that you care about the affordability issue that everybody's talking about. Like, I love all these wins, of course, like NIH and, I love the fact that, here we are in a war and we've only had 13 soldiers die. right? I mean, of course it's horrific. It's terrible that anybody dies, but we're in a war, and that's it. But I still have to balance my checkbook, and so I want to see that's the kind of win that Republicans need. They need that tangible win. We need to get that proof back in our household budget that all of these things are working.
So there's two things I would say, and hey, I know I don't have a crystal ball for sure, so I'm purely speculating, right? But just based on past experience with this administration and how brilliantly they've run things, one, I would say patience is the first thing, number one. Number two, the vast majority of the reason why you're feeling those things is because you're in a horrible state and you know who's running that horrible state. You're like one of the worst states, it's Democrat driven, have driven all the problems that you see. It's true nationally, but it's worse in states like Oregon, Washington, California. The blue states are suffering the most. So I would say that is the thing to keep in mind. And then the last part I would say is there's a lot of things, this is my guess, just thinking strategically, that a lot of very positive things are going to happen just in time for the election. And we're in May? So I think you have to sit back and watch and see what's going to happen. I think it's kind of early to say game's up or whatever, because these guys have played things beautifully. I mean, you look at these indictments that are starting to come down now, right? Why didn't they do that like a year ago? Well, there's a reason for that. I think this stuff's going to be slow roll to come out to remind everybody of just how badly they've been ripping off the country just in time for the election. And I think it's just brilliant. And I'm just sitting back to watch and see how that plays out. But that is my guess.
Yeah.
That is my guess.
Yeah, I hope that is the case. I really, really do. I mean, I know that there's just more and more exposure to California's fraud and Newsom's fraud. And, I guess even in Newsom's budget, he ensured that the high-speed rail would continue to be funded at the tune of $90 billion or something stupid for the next several years. I mean, of course, you can rewind that, right? Whoever gets in as governor can rewind that and not, I mean, it can pass, but you just don't fund it, right?
Right.
Which is what the Dems do all the time with all of this, I'm going to call it justice reform, but, basically, they're like, okay, taxpayers, we'll let that, we'll acknowledge that you won that issue, but we're just not going to fund any structure or enforcement of, whatever. It's all right. I guess it's kind of like when you let, the star student be the principal for the day, he might go in and make all sorts of rules and,
right.
But you're like, all right, that's right. It's time to go.
You can't make it up, but I think as you slow roll these things, just as a few, I came up with this list. This must have been from a week or two ago. We talked about this already, but let's see. Eric Swalwell from California resigned from Congress. You know about that guy, right? That happened. The Southern Poverty Law Center indictment, that just happened. And that case will be rolling up just in time for, guess what? The Fauci advisor who just went down, that's going to be rolling in time for the election. That case, you just go down the list. There's just a ton of these things.
Seven more people. Is it seven more people?
Right.
Have gone down in was it NIAID, whatever. In fact, direct reports to Fauci have all been relieved of their duties. So.
Yep. James Comey getting ready to go down, right? And then there's the one in the mayor in Arcadia in California, a Chinese spy, right? So I think we're going to see these things continue to roll up. I have been Pollyannish in the past. I know I tend to be an optimist, but I think we're going to look at a historical light here. I really do. Historically, we know. I think there's only been one election where the party out of power has held on to the Congress. But I don't think we've seen a situation align the way this is. We have a party out of power that has nothing to run on, doesn't have a candidate that really could be taken seriously. There's no position, no one that can speak to anything of success in the past. Um, what do you call it? The uh, the electoral college and the way that that's going in terms of population shifts are going in favor of conservatives. So people are leaving the
Mhm.
leftist states and going to the conservative states. So they're going to lose electoral votes. That's going to happen. The gerrymandering, Republicans have never really did it. The Democrats have nothing to gerrymander because they've already done it. So for the first time, Republicans are waking up and playing the game. That's going to cause a huge shift in terms of in terms of the votes that are going to wind up moving towards Republicans. I think I saw one analyst say that there's probably about a 13 representative shift for this coming election just from the gerrymandering alone. And that doesn't even take into account what's going to happen in 2030 when we have the census revision. And there's going to be a whole bunch more of shifts in terms of states with electoral votes. States like New York, the Northeast, California, Washington, Oregon, those are all going to lose votes, and they're going to go to places that are productive and conservative. So it's really stacking up nicely that this party, the Democrat Party, referring to, will either have to reform itself or completely go away. Um, it's because the leadership of it. Where are the regular liberals? I mean, you can't come up with a regular liberal um, on national stature. You just can't. I mean, the one who might have been was Shapiro. He was Jewish, so they blew up his house and decided they didn't want him. What's her name? Tulsi Gabbard. But they decided they didn't want her either. Put a bunch of people to chase her around airports and make her go through additional security and try to ruin her life. So they didn't want her either. RFK, well, here is the icon of traditional liberal Democrat Party, ran the dude out of the party. I mean, what are they doing? The Marxists have taken over the House. That's what's.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think. I just don't think they're electable. I just don't believe it. It's like it goes back to this. I'll talk about Oregon. I know Oregon really well, right? I've never thought, even Portland, I've never thought the regular Portlander was progressive crazy. So all the stuff you've seen over the last few years, it would look like that to someone from the outside, right? I've never believed it. I've known that they are JFK liberal, but not progressive, but liberal, so clean streets, don't litter. I mean, all of that stuff that the place was famous for, it was all of that, but they were not crazy. The problem with, though, the live and let live crowd is some things can't be allowed to live and let live, right? There has to be a hard stop on something. And what happened in the last 5 or 6 years, they invited in, they made themselves open to all of these people who moved in, took over the politics here, and drove the place to the pavement. But that's not what the regular Portlander is really like. And that's one of the reasons why we're looking at a governor's race that's essentially a dead heat. Actually, I shouldn't say it's dead heat. The Republican, Drazen, I think is her name, she's up by like 4 or 5 points. She was competitive the last time around. I think she only lost by 3 or 4 points. So she's up by 4 or 5 points. And the current governor here, but pretty much every ranking is ranked the worst governor of the United States, by the way, even worse than the one in California. And if you clean up the poll stuff, which is dramatically cleaned up, we're going to see Republican governor Oregon for the first time in 39 years.
Well, we may see that in California too. I mean,
yeah. You look at California. People have been, the guy who's running is talking common sense. He's living in what? Is it like a trailer or something? Burnt his house to the ground. He's speaking directly from where the people are that have been affected by these policies. He's the
mayor. He's running for mayor of LA. Yeah,
the mayor of LA. Yeah, but the people that are listening to him, or people that are competing with him, all they do is like bash Trump. Well, Trump's not in this race. These are things that you got to deal with. I mean, he wasn't the one who turned off the fire hydrants and stop the water from flowing to Northern California to Southern California, or change the law so that you couldn't do burning and burn back the brush by your door. He didn't do any of that stuff. In fact, he was talking about this 10 years ago. I think Trump was saying you needed to do this stuff, and they refused to do it because they were more proud of promoting what people of a certain gender to the chief of the fire department. That was like much more important, I guess. Or traveling to Libya in the middle of like the fire season in LA. I don't think it was Liberia, I think.
I don't remember. Yeah, somewhere stupid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere like you should have turned around. I don't care where you're going. You should have turned around.
You had been warned. And every September is fire. It's like, I forgot to go. Santa Ana's are blowing. I used to live down there. I know what happens in that time. And you had been told and warned that it was extra high risk this year. And she goes anyway. It's like, it's unbelievable. It reminds me of, what was it? I think it was General Rommel, to go back to the World War II scenario. Hitler had orders, don't wake me up no matter what. And Rommel went back to, I can't remember, one of the towns. He left the front to go to his wife's. It was his wife's birthday or his birthday. He's going to spend the night there. Don't disturb me. Meanwhile, the Allies are landing on D-Day, and these cats can't be disturbed. You can't make it up, right?
Well, it's just the hubris. It's that it doesn't matter. It's the Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. It doesn't matter. Don't bother me with this. This is so far beneath me. These people will never make a difference in my position and my power. So don't even bother me. And that's the whole attitude that these people have, all of them.
Well, you remind me, and I thought of this the other day. I was reading, and then it just occurred to me. So when the founders came here, and they wanted to create a country that was run by the citizens. So the government was supposed to work for the citizens, right? So the last thing they wanted to do was come here and create another monarchy or monarchical system. So think about this for a minute. So we get here, and suddenly we have mayors living in. So the mayor of LA, I think, is it Getty Mansion? I think the mayor of Chicago lives in the Wrigley Mansion. But if you go to the list of these cities, they live in these places that are, insert the name, mansion. New York City has one like that too. And you have to ask yourself, is that what the founders intended for the people who would run our cities to be set aside from the citizens, living in literally, in Europe, they call them castles, by the way. We just call them mansions. And they're not even around the people for whom they're supposed to represent. So they know nothing about them. And if they're not in these mansions, then they live in places like Bel Air,
right?
If you're in California,
behind the gates,
Palisades in LA, or it used to before it burnt down, Bellevue in Seattle, Lake Oswego in Portland. Hey, if you know the country, you know the Tony places they live. They have nothing there, so they make policies that do not impact them, but directly impact the people that they represent, particularly if they don't live in those kinds of neighborhoods. So you're making decisions, you live in like Bel Air, and your decisions like, let's get the police off the street. We don't need police. Well, that's fine in Bel Air, but that's not going to work out so good in East LA.
Right. Right. Not only do you have this, this swanky place where you're living, but, you get all sorts of perks that, folks like us don't have. You've got lifetime pension, lifetime health insurance. You've got, free tuition for your kids to universities. It's just the perks that these people receive are inconceivable. You and I wouldn't even, we would have to be some big league CEO to get anything close to these kinds of perks. You know what I mean? And it's just like, how do they, well, in San Diego, for instance, our San Diego County Board of Supervisors, so there's 5 of them, they make around $250,000 a year. They have staff. They have a huge budget, each one of them, that they control, that they can hand out grants and, curry favors with different, constituents and different special interest groups. They have a 2-year term limit. They just voted themselves an additional term. They voted themselves. now they have a 3-year term. It's 4 freaking years. So 12 years now that they are insured to put into their pension and receive these benefits. I mean, how can you vote for your own term extension? How is that possible?
Yeah, it's their personal piggy bank. And until the regular citizens wake up and put a stop to it, it will continue to be the case. Now, recognize a lot of the reasons these people are in power is because they've rigged the system such that it makes it that way. Like one of the classic ways of doing that is with the gerrymandering. A lot of these people would never be in power in the first place. They would never get elected if they didn't operate in these gerrymandered systems.
Yeah.
So, but I would love to see a system where, a rule, essentially a law, local, it had to be local municipalities that passed it. But basically you can't you're not living in a government mansion, or this is probably a bit too blue sky, but you have to live in a zip code that's representative of your district.
Absolutely. And how about you just live on your income? How about that?
Right.
How about you can have an income, but it probably needs to be determined based on the average income for a private sector position, right? You're an elected official, right? You're not working for the county necessarily. You're only there for supposedly a short term. So if you come from, San Diego County, District 5, okay, what's the median income, private industry for what you're doing, right? So maybe it's the CEO. Maybe it's the CEO for a company. That's what you get. And you have to live within your means.
Yeah, and you have to live in the district X number. You can't spend all your time in Washington, D.C. If you're representing Bell Gardens, you live in Bell Gardens. But we don't do that. So these people start behaving like monarchs. But I have faith that as we reduce and eliminate the cheating, and equal, if you're going to gerrymander, then it better be equal gerrymandering. Republicans have just not done that. This is like playing a football game, and the other team gets takes an extra down every time, and you're just a nice gentleman playing by the rules, the Marquis de Queensberry, and you're getting hosed every game, but you're a nice gentleman. You can't keep doing that. If the other team's not going to play by the rules, then you gotta square up and either enforce the rule. That's just how it is.
I know. I wish that all the gerrymandering would be outlawed, but yeah, I mean, I guess this is the game, so you got to play it.
Yeah, you got to play the game, and it's, hey, if it's those are the rules. Just play the rules of the game. And it's just and a lot of this too, though, is we haven't been doing that because we've had rhinos who really are in agreement with the other side. They're just saying what they need to say to stay in office, and whenever a critical thing comes down, then they vote against it and stop it.
Well, and I think you're right. I think that's absolutely true. And if you make waves within your party, you get taken off of, and party leadership, you get taken off of committees. You no longer have leadership positions within the party, right? So you start to feel the backlash with your own party, So I get it. Like it becomes very difficult. But I think also most of the people that are in elected office have never done anything significant in their own life or in a business, in the marketplace. So we send these people over there to reform Social Security or revise the tax code or pass laws that are on police enforcement, and whatever. Like, these people have absolutely no experience in doing that kind of work. If you've never run a company, how in the world can you possibly develop programming and laws for people who do?
Well, and maybe even worse than that is this. And I just wrote about this. I did a little research on this the other day. What percentage of the population has a college degree? Now, I think recently that number is around 25%. I think it's less than that actually, but let's take them at the word, say it's 25%. And then you say, what percentage of the population has a law degree? That number is like 0.001. It's a tiny fraction of the population. Then you look at Congress and you say, what percentage of Congress has a law degree? That number is around 45%.
From swanky schools.
Right,
so
right,
all
right.
programmed with the same thoughts.
Yep. So they go to Camp Communist, which is basically what law schools have become, and they don't live and experience anything like the rest of the population, which is really the point I'm getting at. So let's say that it's true that 25% even has a college degree. 75% don't have that experience, and these people don't live the same life, and they separate themselves more and more from the lives of the general population. So they don't know anything about what the general population lives like, number one. And number two, if you're all lawyers, and this is more towards your point, you've not run anything. You've been a lawyer, which is essentially an advisor, but you've not run anything. If you look at like going back to the founding, when so we were in pre-industrial revolution, like 85, 90% of the population worked in agriculture, right? So we all knew each other. We knew it. Everybody pretty much knew that world. Now, you might have been the guy who shoes the horses, and the other guy might have been the guy who got the feed. And but bottom line, we're all in a very similar world. And those people will go off to Congress, right? And there weren't a bunch of degrees and stuff back then. And they knew the lives of the people that they represented because they lived those lives. We now have a situation where the vast majority of the people who represent us don't represent us.
Yeah.
Because they ain't us.
Yeah.
And you look at something like a Jeffrey's Island, right? And think to yourself, how does that happen? I will guarantee you that the general population is not doing stuff like, Epstein Island. But a huge percentage of the elites do that stuff. Like I said, our representatives are representative of us. Yeah, go ahead.
If you listen to Tucker Carlson, his dad was in the CIA, mm-hmm. and he grew up as a journalist, mm-hmm. And lived in DC for a long time. Mm-hmm. And he has said on his show several times, he has not met. He said there are very few exceptions, but in general, everybody that he's met in Congress has some sort of perverse predilection, some sort of blackmailable habit. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, they're disgusting, basically, broken and easily manipulated.
Well, you think about the professors that they've been on these law schools. Something like, I saw this, that was like 90% of professors are Democrat or vote left, which by itself isn't a crime, but something like 90-something% of them either are some version of atheists, don't believe in God, whatever it is, right? Versus the general population, which is way different from that.
Yeah.
And so if you don't believe in any of that, then it's very easy for you to do things that are, and let's face it, most of the problems that people have with religion is the problem around that 6th or 7th commandment, which is like about adultery, right? People don't like that, man. We like us some adultery up in here, let me tell you. We love some adultery. and those guys are doing that.
Yes, I'm helping to that.
Everybody knows it's true, but those guys, if you don't believe there is an eternal being who's going to make you pay the price for that, or if at least you don't want to acknowledge that, you're more likely to do that. That's just, I'm not being, I'm no theologian. I'm just exercising common sense. If I think there's some being who sees everything that I do and is going to hold me accountable for that, I'm a lot less likely to go do that thing.
Well, I think a lot of people push back on religion because of the people that are in the religion. It may not even be the 10 Commandments, Well,
I'll tell you, Leslie, I think that's like the weakest excuse ever, man. I think you're right. People say that. But the thing is, like, for example, you might hear somebody, I don't believe religion because Joe and Jane over there, they're religious and they do all these bad things. Well, of course, they're human beings. They're going to do bad things. But that doesn't let you off the hook, though.
Well, but you and I know that because we're strong Christians and we recognize that's why we need God, because we're all just filthy, like I'm
Yeah.
not going to do the right thing. I can't be trusted to do the right and compassionate thing because I'm fallen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the world is
Right.
fallen. We recognize that, and that's what draws us closer to God. But people who don't have that kind of belief system are only looking at their superficial level, and so it's if they're if what's going to attract them to the faith are the people that are exhibiting God's qualities. And if they're surrounded by people who don't, or they've been abused by of course, like it's, oh, I had a bad experience at Chili's. And so I'm never going to nobody should go to Chili's. Right. Like you just sort of use that as your excuse when,
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. And our politicians, I mean, it's like I think for the reasons we just described, they are living a parallel like existence, and it comes out when you have these crazy scandals. Because I guarantee you, the general population, if I was going to use a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being we're all saints and we got a little halo over our head, and one being the flames of hell are licking on us, right? Let's say the country in the general population is probably let's say it's a 6. And let's say in the 40s and 50s, maybe it was a 7 or 8, right? So let's say we're 6. We're not as good as we used to be. I think that's pretty obvious, right? But the ruling class used to mimic or model the general population. I think if the general population is 6, the ruling class is like a 2 or 3. And Epstein Island is just the evidence of that. And we can go down the list of politicians who've done crazy stuff. Like what's the cat's name? Remember Anthony Weiner? Unfortunately, that last name is his last name. I didn't make that up. But this guy's out there showing his stuff to like teenagers, right? This is a congressman. And it's not just Democrats. There was the Republican, the governor from South Carolina, who ran off 15 years ago, disappeared with a journalist from Argentina. Remember that?
No.
No, this guy just like disappeared. I can't remember his name. And then when he finally came back, they asked him where he was, and he said he was hiking the Appalachian Trail. After that, you couldn't say you were hiking the Appalachian Trail without people laughing. Oh, I was hiking the Appalachian Trail. So this kind of stuff, there was Senator Packwood from Oregon. He got ran out of Dodge for chasing women. And he was like, what do you call it? And he was a Republican. And of course, there's the infamous Bill Clinton, JFK, RFK. You go on the line. These guys are like notorious. The general population's not doing that. I'm not saying that there aren't some people. Obviously, there's some. But on the scale that these guys do it, to the point that your friend was saying, it's like unbelievable. And I think part of the reason for that is because they live a parallel existence. They are trained in Marx by a bunch of Marxists and non-believers, and they either don't think there's a God or they push that out of their mind and like, well, I'll deal with that on my deathbed, maybe.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
You kick the woman out of your deathbed, man, so you can pray. Hey, look, Mom, I got some business to attend to here. Call a priest. On your way out the door, could you get the priest? So I'm so mad.
Oh my gosh, Don. Hey, I know we're running out of time, or I think we're over time, but did you, are you tracking at all this story about, is it Sasha Obama, who's been spotted wearing a MAGA hat and who's now coming out and talking about,
I missed that.
Yeah. I guess it's all I mentioned. I saw something on Instagram. I follow this channel called Real News. It was either just the news or it was Real News No BS. I follow both of those channels, and they were talking about so Sasha's been wearing a MAGA hat around town, and apparently she's coming out and she's talking about her upbringing, about how she and her sister are both adopted, how she, it was always it was very open with the family that her mother is not a woman, her mother is Michael, and her dad they're gay. And apparently it was pretty open in the White House too. She's saying it.
She's
like, it's not a controversy, a conspiracy anymore. Like the kid is actually saying it.
So what media sources are daring to publish that?
It was on, well,
I'm
I saw
not.
it on Instagram. It was, I think it was either Real News, No BS, all together. It's on Instagram, or it was Just the News, also on Instagram.
Wow.
Those are just news sources that are reposting things that other people are. But I'll look it up and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, and I
Ask your kids. Ask your kids. They'll know. Your son will know.
no, they'll know. That's I don't even have a word for that. If the general public were to really hear that, first of all, they wouldn't believe it. It would take them. Yeah, wow. I will be on the lookout for that. You gave me something new today.
Yeah. Yeah. Some little fireworks in your head.
Yes. Well, we've definitely gone past our time. So thank you, audience, for listening to us, for putting up with us, and I hope you had as much fun as we did. Clearly, I think we had a good time. If you didn't have a good time, that's your fault. Any closing thoughts, Leslie?
No, that we've still got some more that we need to talk about. So maybe we should stay late. Either that or I'll just save it for next time. But yeah, there's always,
Yeah,
always fun
yeah,
conversation, Dawn. I love it.
always, always, always. All right. Well, hey, everybody, you all take care. We'll see you next week. Leslie, we'll talk to you soon.
Okie doke.
Good night. Were you able to sign off?